The morning air in the mountains of Afghanistan carried a chill that made Staff Sergeant Marcus Chun pull his tactical vest tighter against his chest. He adjusted the scope on his Barrett .50 caliber rifle and settled into position behind a cluster of weathered rocks, nearly 2 miles from where his SEAL team brothers were supposed to make contact with their target. Marcus had been a sniper for 8 years, but today felt different. Something in his gut told him this mission would test every skill he had learned. The intelligence reports seemed too clean, too perfect. Taliban commander Rashid Malik was supposedly holed up in a compound with minimal security, waiting for a weapons shipment. It sounded like a gift, and Marcus had learned long ago that gifts in this business usually came with deadly strings attached. Through his radio earpiece, he heard Lieutenant Jake Rodriguez briefing the team one final time. "Remember, we go in quiet, extract the intel, and get out. Chun, you provide overwatch from the ridge. If things go sideways, you know what to do." Marcus keyed his radio twice in acknowledgement. He had worked with this team for 3 years, and they moved together like parts of a well-oiled machine. Rodriguez was steady under pressure, never rushed decisions. Petty Officer Sam Williams handled explosives with the precision of a surgeon. Hospital corpsman Tony Martinez could patch up wounds or take down enemies with equal skill. And Petty Officer Dave Thompson could crack any lock or computer system they encountered. As the sun climbed higher, Marcus watched through his scope as the 4-man team approached the target compound. The building sat in a valley surrounded by steep hills, accessible by only one narrow dirt road. Local intelligence suggested Malik used this location because it offered multiple escape routes through mountain passes. What the intelligence failed to mention was how perfectly those same hills could hide an ambush. The compound looked exactly as described in their briefing. A 2-story concrete building with a flat roof, surrounded by a low stone wall. A few old vehicles parked outside. No visible guards walking the perimeter. Marcus frowned as he scanned the area through his scope. Where was the security? Even low-level Taliban commanders kept armed men on watch. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the radio. "Approaching the compound now. Still no visual on hostiles. Something feels wrong here." Marcus swept his scope across the surrounding hills, looking for any sign of movement. The terrain offered countless hiding spots among the rocks and sparse vegetation. If someone wanted to set a trap, this location was perfect. The compound sat in what amounted to a natural arena, with elevated positions on all sides providing clear fields of fire. "Copy that, Lieutenant. About eyes on your approach. Still clear from my position, but stay sharp." The team reached the outer wall without incident. Thompson worked quickly on the compound's gate while the others provided security. Within seconds, he had the lock picked and signaled for the team to move inside. Marcus shifted his position slightly to get a better angle on the compound's interior courtyard. Through his scope, he watched his teammates move with practiced precision toward the main building. Rodriguez held up a closed fist, bringing the team to a halt just outside the entrance. That's when Marcus saw the first sign of trouble. A brief reflection of sunlight off metal from a hill position about 800 meters south of the compound. He immediately adjusted his scope to investigate and felt his blood run cold. Armed men were positioned throughout the hills surrounding the valley, all with clear sight lines to the compound below. "Rodriguez, abort mission. You got hostiles in the hills. Multiple positions. This is a trap." But before Rodriguez could respond, the first shots rang out from the hillsides. Muzzle flashes erupted from at least 6 different positions as automatic weapons fire rained down on the compound. The Taliban had waited for the SEAL team to enter the killing zone before springing their ambush. Marcus watched helplessly as his teammates scrambled for cover behind the vehicles in the courtyard. The compound that had seemed like their objective was actually the center of a carefully planned trap. The Taliban had used the weapons delivery story as bait, knowing American forces would send a team to investigate. Taking heavy fire from multiple positions, Rodriguez shouted over the radio. "We're pinned down in the courtyard. Cannot move to extraction point." Marcus quickly counted the hostile positions through his scope. 7 confirmed firing points spread across the surrounding hills. with more potential positions he couldn't see from his angle. Each position held 3 to 4 fighters, meaning his 4 teammates were facing overwhelming odds. Copy that. I count 7 hostile positions, preparing to engage. Marcus knew the mathematics of the situation were brutal. His teammates had limited ammunition and no way to advance or retreat under the concentrated fire from the hills. The Taliban fighters held every tactical advantage except one thing they didn't know existed. Marcus Chun had earned his reputation as one of the deadliest long-range shooters in the Navy SEALs through situations exactly like this one. While his teammates fought for their lives in the valley below, he began the careful process of evening the odds. He selected his first target, a machine gun position on the eastern hill that had the best angle on his team's location. The range was 1,847 meters, according to his rangefinder. Wind speed was minimal, but he still needed to account for the mountain air density and the slight upward angle of his shot. Marcus controlled his breathing, feeling his heart rate slow as he entered the focus state that had kept him alive through dozens of missions. Through his scope, he could see the Taliban fighter manning the machine gun, completely unaware that death was about to reach out and touch him from nearly 2 miles away. The Barrett .50 caliber rifle bucked against Marcus's shoulder as he squeezed the trigger. The massive round traveled across the valley in less than 2 seconds, striking the machine gunner's center mass and removing him from the equation permanently. Before the other Taliban positions could react to the sudden loss of their eastern flank, Marcus was already acquiring his second target. A group of fighters with RPGs on the southern hill who were trying to get a clear shot at the vehicles protecting his teammates. The second shot found its mark just as precisely as the first, dropping the RPG gunner and sending his weapon tumbling down the hillside. Now the Taliban fighters knew they had a sniper problem, but they couldn't locate Marcus's position among the countless hiding spots in the surrounding mountains. Down in the compound courtyard, Rodriguez seized the momentary lull in incoming fire to rally his team. Chin's got our backs. Martinez, can you reach that doorway? Williams, prep a charge on the main building. We need to clear this place and find another way out. Marcus continued his methodical elimination of the hostile positions, but he could see more Taliban fighters moving through the hills to reinforce the ambush. What had started as a planned trap for 4 Navy SEALs was turning into a running battle across an entire mountain valley. As he lined up his 4th shot, Marcus realized this was just the beginning. The Taliban had committed significant resources to this ambush, and they wouldn't give up easily. His teammates were still trapped in the compound with limited ammunition and no clear escape route. The real fight was about to begin, and Marcus Chun was the only thing standing between his SEAL brothers and a Taliban victory that would cost American lives. He settled deeper into his position and prepared for the longest day of his military career. The morning that had started with routine mission planning had become a test of everything the Navy SEALs stood for. In the valley below, 4 of America's elite warriors fought for their lives. On the mountainside above, one sniper prepared to prove that sometimes a single man with the right skills could change the entire outcome of a battle. Marcus keyed his radio one more time. Hold tight, boys. The party's just getting started. The Taliban fighters in the hills were learning a harsh lesson about engaging Navy SEALs. Every time they exposed themselves to take aim at the trapped team in the compound, Marcus Chin's rifle spoke with deadly authority. His 5th shot silenced a sniper who had been trying to pick off Rodriguez from a concealed position on the western slope. But Marcus could see the situation developing into something far more dangerous than a simple ambush. Through his scope, he spotted vehicles approaching on the valley's access road, kicking up dust clouds visible from miles away. The Taliban were bringing reinforcements, and lots of them. Rodriguez, you've got company coming up the road. Multiple vehicles, probably 20 to 30 additional hostiles. We need to speed this up. In the compound courtyard, Rodriguez ducked as bullets sparked off the concrete wall above his head. Copy that. Williams just breached the main building. We're going in now to grab whatever intel we can find. Marcus shifted his attention to the approaching convoy while keeping one eye on the remaining hillside positions. The vehicles were moving fast, probably hoping to reach the compound before the mysterious sniper could target them. They were wrong about that. The lead truck came into range just as Marcus finished calculating the distance and wind conditions. At 2,100 meters, this would be one of his longest shots of the day, but the Barrett was built for exactly this kind of work. He aimed for the driver's side windshield and squeezed the trigger. The massive .50 caliber round punched through the truck's windshield and sent the vehicle careening off the road into a rocky ditch. The convoy immediately stopped, and Marcus could see fighters scrambling out of the remaining vehicles to take cover. First vehicle down. The rest are dismounting and taking positions along the road. You got maybe 10 minutes before they organize and advance on foot. Rodriguez's voice came back strained but determined. Thompson found a computer and files. Martinez is treating Williams for a leg wound. We need 5 more minutes. 5 minutes was a lifetime in a firefight, but Marcus had been buying time for his teammates his entire career. He turned his attention back to the hillside positions, where the remaining Taliban fighters were becoming more cautious about exposing themselves. The problem was that caution worked both ways. Marcus couldn't see targets clearly enough to guarantee kills, which meant the enemy fighters were still in position to rain fire down on his team when they tried to leave the compound. That's when Marcus made a decision that would define the rest of his military career. Instead of waiting for clear shots at concealed targets, he was going to force them into the open. Marcus began systematically destroying anything the Taliban fighters might use for cover. A large boulder that concealed a firing position disintegrated under the Barrett's massive rounds. A small tree that hid another group of fighters splintered into useless wood chips. The psychological effect was immediate and devastating. Fighters who had felt safe behind cover suddenly realized that the American sniper could destroy their hiding places at will. Some panicked and ran for better positions, exposing themselves to Marcus's precise fire. Others hugged the ground and stopped shooting entirely, afraid to give away their locations. Rodriguez, I've got most of the hillside positions suppressed. How's that intel collection coming? Almost done. Thompson's copying files now. Martinez has Williams stabilized. We'll be ready to move in 2 minutes. Marcus checked his ammunition count. 37 rounds remaining out of the 60 he had started with. More than enough for what came next, but he would need to make every shot count. The Taliban convoy was organizing for an advance on foot, and he could see more fighters moving through the hills to replace the ones he had eliminated. The mission was about to enter its most dangerous phase. Getting into the compound had been difficult, but getting out alive would require everything the SEAL team had learned about fighting against overwhelming odds. Marcus spotted the Taliban commander directing the convoy's advance from behind one of the disabled vehicles. The man was using a radio to coordinate with the hillside positions, clearly planning a synchronized assault on the compound. Taking out the commander would disrupt their coordination and buy his team precious time. The shot was challenging. The commander was partially concealed behind the truck, and the range was over 2,000 meters with a slight crosswind. Marcus steadied his breathing and made minute adjustments to his scope. The Taliban commander was so focused on his radio conversation that he never saw death approaching at 2,800 feet per second. The round found its target with typical Marcus Chun precision, and suddenly, the Taliban assault lost its coordination. Fighters along the road began arguing among themselves about what to do next. Some wanted to continue the advance. Others wanted to wait for clearer orders from higher command. Target commander eliminated. The road convoy is disorganized, but they'll figure it out soon. You need to move now. Rodriguez's voice came back immediately. Copy that. We're coming out the back of the compound. Thompson found plans for attacks on 3 other coalition bases. This intel is solid gold, but we need extraction. Marcus had already considered the extraction problem. The planned helicopter pickup zone was on the other side of the valley, completely exposed to fire from multiple directions. With the Taliban forces now alerted and positioned throughout the area, reaching that zone would be suicide. Negative on the primary extraction zone. Too much hostile activity. I'm going to guide you to an alternate location. Marcus studied the terrain through his scope, looking for a route that would keep his teammates out of the Taliban's line of sight, while moving them toward a defensible position. He found it in a narrow canyon that cut through the eastern hills, invisible from most of the enemy positions. Rodriguez, exit the compound and move east toward the canyon entrance. I'll mark your path with suppressive fire and take out anyone who tries to intercept you. Copy that. Moving now, Marcus watched his 4 teammates sprint from the compound toward the canyon entrance, carrying their wounded brother and the captured intelligence. Immediately, Taliban fighters from the remaining hillside positions opened fire, trying to cut them off before they could reach cover. This was the moment Marcus had trained for his entire career. 4 American warriors were running for their lives across open ground, and he was the only thing standing between them and death. The Barrett rifle became an extension of his will as he engaged target after target with mechanical precision. A fighter with an RPG who tried to get a shot at the fleeing SEALs found himself missing his upper torso. 2 Taliban fighters who attempted to flank the team's route discovered that 2,000 meters wasn't nearly far enough to hide from Marcus's rifle. Another group that tried to set up a machine gun position learned that concealment and cover weren't the same thing when facing a .50 caliber sniper rifle. Rodriguez's team reached the canyon entrance and disappeared into the rocky terrain just as the Taliban convoy finally organized their ground assault on the now empty compound. Marcus smiled grimly as he watched enemy fighters storm into the courtyard, finding nothing but spent brass and bloodstains. We're in the canyon and moving toward the alternate extraction zone. How's your ammunition situation? Marcus checked his remaining rounds. 18 left, and he still had to cover his team's movement through the canyon while keeping the Taliban forces from organizing an effective pursuit. It would be tight, but he had worked with worse odds before. I've got enough to finish the job. Keep moving. I'll stay in position until the helicopter arrives. As Rodriguez's team moved deeper into the canyon towards safety, Marcus Chun settled in for the final phase of the mission. The Taliban forces were regrouping and would soon realize their prey had escaped the trap. When they did, they would come looking with everything they had. Marcus Chun had started this day as a sniper providing overwatch for a routine intelligence gathering mission. Now he was the sole barrier between a Taliban force and for Navy SEALs carrying intelligence that could save countless American lives. The morning's easy mission had become the defining moment of his career, and he intended to make sure his teammates made it home to tell the story. The Taliban commander's death had created chaos, but Marcus knew that chaos wouldn't last long. Enemy fighters were already reorganizing under a new leader, and they were angry. 23 of their brothers had fallen to a single American sniper, and they wanted blood. Through his scope, Marcus watched the Taliban forces split into 3 groups. One group moved toward the canyon to pursue Rodriguez's team. Another group began climbing the hills to hunt for his position. The third group stayed with the vehicles, probably calling for additional reinforcements and helicopter support. Marcus made a quick calculation. His team needed 15 more minutes to reach the extraction zone. The pursuing Taliban fighters would catch up to them in the narrow canyon in about 10 minutes if he didn't slow them down. The hunters coming for him would find his position in about the same time if he stayed put. The solution was simple in concept, but would require perfect execution. Marcus was going to have to move while fighting, leading the hunters away from his team while eliminating the pursuers before they could trap Rodriguez in the canyon. Marcus packed his gear quickly, leaving behind everything except his rifle, ammunition, and radio. He had practiced this kind of fighting retreat countless times in training, but never with so many lives hanging in the balance. His first priority was the Taliban group moving toward the canyon. Marcus relocated to a position 200 meters south of his original spot and set up for a series of rapid shots. The pursuing fighters were moving fast, trying to catch up to the SEALs before they could escape. Marcus's first shot dropped the lead pursuer at 1,650 meters, sending the rest of the group diving for cover among the rocks. His second shot eliminated the fighter who tried to take point, and his third shot destroyed the radio one fighter was using to coordinate with other Taliban units. The psychological effect was devastating. The Taliban fighters found themselves trapped in the open canyon approach, afraid to move forward into the sniper's field of fire, but unable to retreat without losing face. Marcus had effectively removed them from the equation without using more than a handful of rounds. But the hunters climbing toward his original position had heard the shots and were now moving in his direction. Marcus grabbed his gear and moved again, this time to a ridge position that would let him cover his team's final approach to the extraction zone. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the radio. "We're 2 minutes from the extraction zone. Williams is hanging tough, but he needs medical attention soon." "Copy that. I've got the pursuit pinned down, but we've got more problems coming. I can see helicopter dust signatures to the west." The Taliban called in air support. Marcus watched 3 helicopter dots growing larger against the western sky. Taliban forces in Afghanistan didn't usually have access to helicopter gunships, but they sometimes captured or commandeered military aircraft. If those helicopters were armed and hostile, the extraction would become nearly impossible. "Rodriguez, push hard for the extraction zone. Those helicopters will be here in 5 minutes, and we need to be gone before they arrive." Marcus turned his attention to the Taliban fighters who were still hunting for his position. They were spreading out across the hillside, moving carefully from cover to cover. Smart tactics, but Marcus had been fighting in these mountains for 8 years and knew every trick. He selected a position where the morning sun would be behind him, making it difficult for the hunters to spot his muzzle flash. Then, he began systematically eliminating them in a pattern designed to create maximum confusion about his actual location. Shot 1 dropped a fighter on the northern slope, making the others think he was positioned to the south. Shot 2 eliminated a Taliban spotter on the eastern ridge, suggesting he had moved east. Shot 3 took out a radio operator in the center of the group, making them think he was directly above them. By the time Marcus fired his 6th shot, the remaining Taliban hunters were shooting at shadows and jumping at every sound. They had no idea where the deadly sniper was located, and their fear was making them ineffective. Marcus checked his ammunition. 7 rounds remaining, and the helicopters were getting closer. Time to end this and get to his own extraction point. The helicopters resolve into 3 Soviet-era Mi-8 transport aircraft, not gunships. Marcus smiled grimly as he realized what was happening. The Taliban were bringing in reinforcements, not air support. Those helicopters were full of fighters who would try to land and cut off any American extraction. Marcus keyed his radio. "Rodriguez, those are transport helicopters full of hostiles. They're going to try to land and block your extraction. I'm going to discourage them." Shooting at helicopters with a sniper rifle wasn't typically effective, but Marcus wasn't trying to destroy the aircraft. He was trying to make landing impossible by eliminating the pilots and creating panic among the passengers. The lead helicopter approached the valley floor, looking for a place to land near the extraction zone. Marcus steadied his breathing and aimed for the cockpit. At 1,200 meters, the shot was well within his capability, but hitting a moving target required perfect timing. Marcus squeezed the trigger just as the helicopter began to flare for landing. The .50 caliber round punched through the cockpit windscreen and eliminated the pilot instantly. The helicopter immediately went into an uncontrolled descent, crashing into the valley floor in a ball of twisted metal and burning fuel. The second helicopter pilot saw what happened and immediately pulled up, aborting his landing attempt. But he made the mistake of flying directly over Marcus's position at low altitude. Marcus's second shot turned the aircraft's tail rotor into scrap metal, sending the helicopter into a spinning crash that scattered Taliban reinforcements across a quarter-mile of rocky ground. The third helicopter pilot decided discretion was the better part of valor and turned west, fleeing toward Taliban-controlled territory. Marcus let him go. He had more important priorities. "Rodriguez, helicopters are down. Clear to extract." Copy that. Extraction bird is inbound, 2 minutes out. Can you make it to the secondary pickup point? Marcus checked his position. The secondary pickup point was 800 meters northeast of his current location, across terrain that was now crawling with angry Taliban fighters. He had 5 rounds left, and at least 20 hostiles between him and safety. I'll be there. Count on it. Marcus began his final movement, using every bit of terrain to stay hidden while advancing toward the extraction point. He could hear Taliban fighters calling to each other in the valley below, trying to coordinate a search for the sniper who had devastated their forces. A group of 3 fighters moved into his path, forcing Marcus to make a decision. He could try to go around them and risk missing the extraction, or he could eliminate them and hope the noise didn't draw more attention. Marcus chose the direct approach. 3 quick shots at close range, and the path was clear. 2 rounds remaining, and 400 meters to go. The sound of rotor blades filled the valley as the extraction helicopter approached the pickup zone. Marcus could see Rodriguez's team already in position, with Williams being carried by Martinez while Thompson and Rodriguez provided security. Taliban fighters throughout the valley heard the helicopter and began converging on the extraction zone. Marcus realized he was going to have to provide covering fire for the pickup with just 2 rounds remaining. Marcus reached the extraction zone just as the helicopter touched down. Rodriguez's team was already loading Williams into the aircraft when the first Taliban fighters appeared on the ridgeline above, ready to rain fire down on the exposed helicopter. Marcus used his second-to-last round to drop the lead Taliban fighter, buying the helicopter precious seconds to get airborne. His final round eliminated a fighter with an RPG who was trying to get a shot at the departing aircraft. The helicopter lifted off with all 5 SEALs aboard just as Taliban fighters reached the extraction zone. Marcus watched through the aircraft's window as muzzle flashes erupted throughout the valley, but the shots were too late and poorly aimed. Rodriguez handed Marcus a bottle of water and shouted over the rotor noise, "Outstanding work, Chun. That intelligence you helped us capture is going to save a lot of American lives." Marcus nodded and settled back his seat, finally allowing exhaustion to wash over him. The mission had started as a simple intelligence-gathering operation and turned into a running battle across an entire valley. 28 Taliban fighters had been eliminated, 3 helicopters destroyed, and a major ambush turned into a tactical victory for American forces. But more importantly, 4 Navy SEALs were going home to their families, carrying intelligence that would prevent future attacks on coalition forces. Marcus Chun had done what snipers do best. He had watched over his brothers and made sure they came home alive. As the helicopter flew toward the American base, Marcus cleaned his rifle and prepared his after-action report. Command would want to know how a single sniper had turned a Taliban trap into such a devastating defeat for enemy forces. Marcus smiled slightly as he considered how to explain it. Sometimes the difference between victory and defeat came down to one person in the right place with the right skills and the determination to never let his teammates down. Today had been one of those days, and Marcus Chun had been that person. The Barrett rifle lay across his knees, silent now, but still warm from the morning's work. In the hands of a master, it had spoken with deadly authority across miles of Afghan mountains, delivering a message the Taliban wouldn't soon forget. American warriors take care of their own, and some of them can reach out and touch you from distances you never imagined possible.